Have you ever stopped to think about how a country makes sure its most vulnerable people can still put food on the table, especially when prices are going up? Well, today we're going to dive deep into a massive and absolutely crucial answer to that question, the public distribution system. So let's start with a big what if. What happens when basic staples, like rice and wheat, suddenly become so expensive that the poorest families simply can't afford to buy them? That right there, that's the fundamental problem we're going to tackle.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll get a handle on the food security problem itself. Then, we'll look at how the PDS was created as the solution. After that, we'll break down how the whole thing actually works, see how it got smarter by targeting the needy, and finally, unpack the economics that make it all possible.
Okay, let's kick things off with the most basic question of all. Why is a giant government system like this even necessary to begin with? What's the core issue it's trying to solve?
Well, imagine for a second that the food market had zero rules. In a situation like that, some traders could start hoarding food, basically hiding it away, to pretend there's not enough to go around. This creates an artificial shortage. And what happens then? You guessed it. Prices can be jacked up unfairly, and the people who suffer the most are always the ones with the least amount of money.
So, to stop that exact scenario from happening and to protect the people who need it most, the government stepped in. It created its own answer to the food security puzzle, the PDS.
The Public Distribution System, or PDS for short, is pretty much what it sounds like. It's a huge network managed by the government with a very clear mission: get essential food to the public, not at wild market prices, but at steady, affordable, and controlled rates.
Okay, so we know what it is, but how on earth does a system this massive actually work in practice? Let's follow the journey of the food, literally from the farmer's field all the way to a neighborhood shop.
You can really boil the whole thing down to 3 main steps. Step 1 is procurement. That's just a fancy word for the government buying huge quantities of grain, like rice and wheat, right from the farmers. Step 2 is logistics. They store all that food in massive warehouses and then transport it all over the country. And the final piece of the puzzle, step 3, is distribution, getting that food out to a network of special local shops.
Now, here's the thing. The PDS didn't just stay the same over the years. It actually got smarter. It evolved to become more focused, to zero in on the people who truly needed the support. And this evolution led to what's known as the targeted PDS, or TPDS. You see, the original system was kind of for everybody, but the TPDS was redesigned with a laser-like focus on one goal: making sure the benefits went directly to the poorest households.
So how do they actually do this targeting? Well, it all comes down to a system of different colored ration cards. There's the BPL card for families identified as being below the poverty line. Then there's an APL card for those above the poverty line who might get less support. And then there's the Antyodaya card, and this one is really important. It's specifically for the poorest of the poor, ensuring they get the maximum level of assistance.
But that still leaves a huge question, right? How is the food kept so cheap? Let's dig into the economic engines that make these super low prices a reality. The whole system comes together for people at a place called the Fair Price Shop. You've probably heard it called a ration shop. You can find them all over, in cities and villages, and they are the one place where you can use a ration card to buy that food at the special government-set price. And what exactly are they selling? We're talking about the absolute basics, the things people need every single day to get by. Staples like rice and wheat, sugar, and often even kerosene, which is crucial for cooking and light in many households. And right here, this is the magic of the whole system. You have the market price. That's what you'd pay in any regular shop. But then you have the issue price. That's the special price you pay at the Fair Price Shop. And the number one thing to remember is that the issue price is always much, much lower. So how is that even possible? The secret ingredient is something called a food subsidy. You can think of it like this. The government is paying for a big chunk of the food's real cost behind the scenes. That subsidy is what closes the gap, allowing the shop to sell at that low issue price and making it affordable for millions. But what happens if there's a crisis, like a drought or a flood? That's where the buffer stock comes in. It's basically a giant strategic food reserve for the entire country. The government keeps this huge stockpile of grain so that if there's ever a shortage, they can release it to keep supplies flowing and prices stable. It's a national safety net.
All right, let's do a quick recap of the really big ideas. The PDS is there to provide essential food at affordable prices. It got even better when it became the targeted PDS to focus on the poor.
And the whole system is held up by three main pillars: the fair price shops where you buy the food, the government subsidies that make it cheap, and the buffer stock that keeps it secure.
So, as we've seen, this system is an absolute lifeline for millions of people. But let's be real. A program on this scale, this complex, has to face some unbelievable challenges. It can't be perfect. So, I'll leave you with a question to chew on. What do you think the biggest real-world problems are in making a system like this actually work?